This is bonus content for Cajuns.
And
Cajuns too. Family gathering.
Well, we're all back to chat a little bit about the Cajuns episode and Family Gathering. They were sort of a 2-for-1 or a 1-for-2.
A two-part episode.
A two-part episode. That sounds better, yeah.
Well,
When we first aired it, it was one long episode.
Super long. Yeah, I'm glad we broke it into 2. 'cause
Yeah.
It was a lot to digest.
it was a bit much to take, wasn't it?
It was a bit much to take, yeah. It was a little hard. But breaking it into 2 was a good call. Well, today we want to talk a little bit about Paul Eenhoorn's character of Brett Brickman, because he's kind of the highlight of these couple episodes. And Paul, I want to know a little bit, how did you get started on Broken? Because you were there with us in that improv class when the whole idea started.
Yeah. We invented a town, and I don't think it was Broken. It was some really cool name for a town.
No, it was
I
actually
think
it was
broken.
actually broken.
Yeah, it was broken.
Yeah, and then we came up with all these really silly characters, and then someone who was a genius said, "Let's do a podcast." I
Well,
don't
that
know.
was Mike Fuller who started that
I don't know
plan,
how
right?
that happened, but
Yeah.
we were all on board. That was
Well, it was because I was working at Space 101.1,
yeah.
and they were looking for a radio drama series.
Okay.
And
yeah.
we had improvised this scene in Kay, Liver and Jazz's class, and I thought, what if we did Broken as a radio drama series and turn it into a
Yeah.
podcast?
Yeah.
That's what you call a mental leap.
Well, originally we thought, hey, let's all just stand around and do it like live.
Yeah.
And we quickly realized that would be terrible and
Yeah.
boring and probably suck, and George would swear and,
Jiggle his keys. And
jiggle his keys. Sorry, George. We're picking on you a little bit. But yeah, so you've been there since the beginning, Paul.
Yes,
But
we all
I
have,
mean,
haven't we?
you're kind
But
of
were you? I don't remember. Were you Brick at the beginning? Because I remember being Bert from the first scene.
I invented Brett Brickman in the improv class.
Yes.
I
Yeah.
made up the name. I thought, Brett Brickman, that sounds like a very solid character, right?
And we all just started calling you Brick.
Brick, yes, they call me Brick.
The Brick.
Yeah. And for those of you who are listening, Brick he's like a dartboard in a pub. Everyone throws darts at it, right? That's Brett's life.
Here, let me get my violin.
Well, to be fair,
Yeah,
to
the
be
things you find out
well, you throw darts back at people. Let's be fair.
in family gathering, I found out that Brett used to sew dresses when he was a kid.
Not only for the little dollies, but also for himself.
And
Yeah.
he walked around naked until he was age 7. right?
Yes.
This is the stuff that they throw at Brick.
Okay, first of all, Paul, you struggle a lot with the idea that Brett Brickman is like this bad guy or embarrassing character or something, but we have to let you know, we love
Oh, yeah.
Brett Brickman. Like,
Absolutely.
he is such a rich character.
I
He
think
is so
I think Brick
beautiful.
is really the star of the show.
I
thank
kind of
you.
think Brick
Yeah.
is the star of the show.
yeah.
And I know you've over the course of the series, you've kind of pushed back on the idea that he's the bad guy. And he kind of is, but he kind of isn't. I mean, we've also seen that he really has a soul and that he really cares about things.
He's got a thing for
like,
Rose.
deeply, yeah.
Oh,
Well, and we further say that when Stewie shows up, and he's much taller than Brick. He's like
Yes.
6'5".
Stewie is my long lost brother, and apparently he's very handsome and very rugged. And
Yeah.
he's like a white Caucasian Carlos.
Well,
He's handsome.
It's
He comes
fun-
in a couple
It's
episodes.
funny how Brick just gets grief heaped upon him throughout the show. Like Stewie is one example where Stewie's richer, he's taller, he's better looking, everybody loves him.
Yeah.
The Cajuns, his cousins drive him crazy.
Well, and that's one of the beautiful things when Charlie and Lily show up. Like Taylor, you were in that first scene, right? Annika and I think maybe Heather are there, or
Yeah, I
Denise.
think
I forget
so.
who's there. But when you guys all meet Charlie and Lily are this breath of fresh air. They come in
Yeah.
and they're like full of love and light and happiness, and everybody, and they just like,
Yeah.
you want to know them, you want to be around them.
Well, they're
they
very
want to
embracing
party.
characters.
They love to
And
eat, they love to
yes.
laugh, they love music. And so then they go, yeah, we're here to see our cousin. And every
Mm-hmm.
time somebody goes, oh, who's your cousin? They go, oh, Brett Brickman. That everybody goes, oh, what now?
Brett Brickman is your cousin? Are you
Brickman is
sure?
Are you sure? Have there been DNA tests?
Right.
Like,
And I think Denise is so uncertain. She goes, "Do you speak English? Could you
right.
spell it?"
And the answer to that is no.
okay, difficult episode to transcribe,
Yes.
admittedly.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
the accents Charlie and Lily Lejeune pull out were
Yeah.
What was that surname?
So
was
hard.
Lejeune?
Lejeune.
Lejeune. What a great name.
From Villeplate.
And you
Good
all have to
conversation.
remember that Carrie did a wonderful, wonderful job on that.
Oh, thank
Yeah.
you.
Yes.
You can
the
tell.
voices of both of you.
Tell your wife Gail.
I,
I will
um,
put it on her answering machine anytime she wants to.
I shot a film in Rhode Island late last year, and the director said, "You don't have to understand what this guy is actually saying." So I immediately thought of Carrie.
Yeah.
So, right, I was like, "Oh yes, yeah." It's like I just mumbled and bumbled around and tried to imitate Carrie, and it worked.
Oh, that's wonderful.
You're inspiring. How
Thanks.
wonderful.
You can dedicate your first Oscar to me.
Oh,
That would be
sure, I
fun.
will.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Well, not that I'm afraid you haven't yet won an Oscar, Paul Eenhoorn, but
It's on the
there have been
horizon.
some Sundance awards that you've pulled in. Two of your movies that I really enjoyed were Land Ho and This Is Martin Bonner. Have you guys seen those?
I haven't seen them yet.
What?
Sorry.
They're on Amazon. They're on Stars. They're
I will
on
be
Netflix.
checking them out soon.
They're, if you speak
Yeah.
my name into your Netflix remote, it'll bring
I
up all
will
my
do
movies.
Paul
Eenhoorn.
And that's with
Paul.
2 O's.
And two E's.
O's,
And
two
two R's
A's,
and two
yeah.
H's. Just put two of everything in there.
Two ends.
Two N's.
The Cajuns and Family Gathering. What did we find out? Poopy
found out-
nappies.
Poopy nappy story.
Yes.
Naked till he was 7. He sewed stuff. He sewed dresses. What else was there? It was like a whole charade.
Aunt Mildred used to.
Her big bosoms were
yeah.
like two big sleeping pills.
Yeah.
He used to sleep on top of his Auntie Mildred. and-
This is
And of
just-
course, we hear about Briggs. That cute little tushy.
oh, he's got a cute little tushy.
Yes.
Got that little tushy on you.
This is all the stuff.
Well, and I think that actually made it wonderful because we've all got those stories in our background that we don't want anybody to know. And when they
Yeah.
come out, we're all very embarrassed.
Yeah.
So I think that really made your character far more sympathetic. And everybody in town started going, oh, yeah, okay. So he's not just after the money. He's really a cool dude.
I think these two are such great episodes and people love listening to them because we can all relate. I mean, how many Thanksgiving dinners have there been when you are annoyed with some relatives you don't see very often, when they think they're funny and you're just like, oh, ha, ha, ha. Yeah, I remember when you did that to me. That was great.
Yeah.
So nice of you to bring that up.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, thank
Well,
you.
and of course, it pushes all of Brick's buttons in this episode too. You know,
Which
like
is wonderful to listen
His
to.
need for order, they just show up.
Yeah,
You know, they just throw a party at his house without asking him. And we established that nobody in town has been to his house except maybe Rose. And
Like he never invites anyone up there.
No.
At one point he says he only has one pillow on all the beds.
Yes.
Like he's terrified of being in a relationship. He's terrified of showing anyone his heart and really expressing himself.
My favorite part of Brick and his Cajun family was when they wanted to do bear gumbo.
yes.
Yeah. Well, and that gets George's character in there, right? Because Brick isn't going to take them hunting. He isn't a hunter, but we find out that George has a bear blind up in the forest that he's
Well,
going to
I
take
wanted to call it a duck blind because that's actually what it is, but we named it a bear blind.
We're not really
and,
correct in any way in the show.
Re-listening to it, the duck blind scene is one of my favorites because Lily and Charlie and George and Brick are all in this tiny little duck blind.
Yeah.
And of course, Lily and Charlie go, "Oh, I love you, baby. Oh, give me some sugar. You were just keeping me warm,
We're
baby."
snuggling here tight. We don't need no clothes.
And George is like, "Do you guys really want me to hear this?
Oh, you're
Should I
George,
leave?"
you're family now.
Yeah.
You're family. And they just like adopt everyone into the
Yeah.
family. Once you meet Charlie and Lily, you're family.
Yeah, and they invite the whole town to come
Yeah.
visit
Y'all
them in
come down.
Louisiana.
I didn't want him to leave.
Exactly.
Nobody did.
I heard on
Brick did.
Family Gathering that Brick's, the reason he only has one pillow on each bed.
Yeah.
Do you remember it? I
Oh, yeah,
listened
yeah,
to-
yeah, yeah.
I listened to it. I can't remember what he said exactly, but it was basically in the heat of the moment.
If you're with someone and
if
you're
you're
about
with
to
someone
commit
and you're
something.
about to commit, and there's only one pillow, you actually have to go and find another pillow. And in the time it takes to find another pillow, your brain might start thinking.
Don't use your heart, use your
What a
brain.
stupid thing. What a stupid thing. I'm thinking, where the devil did that come from?
Well, if we wrote the show, we might have thought of something else, but you made it up on the
Yeah.
moment.
That
so
you
it's
talk,
beautiful.
You talk yourself out of it.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Exactly.
that was the
Yeah.
logic why he only had one pillow on each
Yeah.
bed.
But it's such a lonely image.
Yeah.
Like
It
all
is.
these big beds in your giant mansion on the hill.
6 bedrooms.
And you
Seven.
have 7
Yeah,
bedrooms.
with double beds in each one.
Yeah, big beautiful beds and one pillow on each bed.
And doesn't he have, in his bedroom, doesn't he have like a mural of Rose on the ceiling or something?
Yeah. Later
Yeah.
in season 2,
Later
we
on
find
in
that out.
season
Yeah.
You'll have to listen to season 2 now, won't you?
But don't forget, you also have all through the house all the sketches that were done by
All your
Bert.
caricatures.
Yes.
Yeah, and I've got statues.
hall of caricatures.
Statues of Rose.
Yeah.
It's like, whoa.
It's a little... Okay, the thing that's funny about Brick, well, one of the many things
One
that
of
are
them,
funny
yes.
about Brick, he borders on super creep. You know, like
Yes.
from a woman's point of view,
Yes.
like he
Yes.
is a living, breathing Me Too moment where you're like, you are a stalker, creep, pervert, like everything. Like I said no, I mean no. Please stop asking me. And it's a tough line to walk.
Yeah.
It
yeah.
was. That
It
really,
really
was.
is because we want to be like, Taylor and I are sitting right here. We're very sensitive to these sorts of things.
Right.
And there were a few times when I was like, okay, that's too far. I need you to stop talking right
Well,
now.
especially like in season 2, where we find out that he's been spying on her from
Yes.
his billboard
Yeah.
across the street
Yeah.
But only to keep her
for
safe.
her own good. But
I
And
need to keep
that's,
her
you know
safe.
what? But that's like,
Yeah.
there are a lot of red flags about Brett.
Well, and for me, the part that didn't make it as creepy as it could have been was the fact that it was coming from a good place. It was just the execution of these affections was very bizarre.
Very.
I don't
and-
think-
Like old Paul, hey?
No,
I don't think Brick doesn't have that part of his brain that realizes the repercussions of stalking.
exactly.
You're right. Mhm.
Yeah.
He
Yeah.
doesn't think of that.
Yeah, yeah.
Right? He's weird in that way.
But he's like this strangely chivalrous bits to him too.
Yeah.
You know, like I still imagine Brick if we're all in the Twisted Dinghy and somebody was being rude to one of the women in town.
Oh, yeah.
I could see Brick standing up and going,
The
"You
first
need to-" Yeah,
one.
he'd be the first one to step up and help, though. So
I mean, he would
it's
say
really
something bizarre. like, "You don't touch that woman. Only
Because
I
she's
can."
mine, right?
Right. Only I can touch her. But it would be something along those lines where he would be the
Yeah.
first one on his feet to defend any woman in town.
And that's a
Wow.
really multifaceted character
Yeah.
that's hard to. Such a fascinating character. Like he's money grubbing and he's generous, and he's a creep and he's chivalrous, and he's a jerk and he's kind,
And he takes in like Joey fresh off the boat.
and
sa-
he gives people jobs. And
Right.
yeah.
But he's miserly about how he'll pay them,
Right.
But you've got a job the second you come into
Yeah,
town
it's
because
really character.
Brick's got you.
And
He's
it's
got your back.
another thing I think is really interesting about Brick is he's really the only character in the show that has arch nemeses. Not just one arch nemesis. He's got
Right.
many.
Plural.
Yes, he
because
does.
he has Louise.
Right.
Yeah.
He has
Louise.
Heather, who will never give him a permit.
Yeah.
Right.
Yes.
He has Rose part time. He has
Yes.
Mark. You know, all these people he's got this really like intense relationship with.
But he seems to know everything that's going on. Right? He knows about Mark's background, and he
does.
you
Yeah,
know,
he's
and he-
very
and he-
knowing.
Yeah.
About
because he's
the-
got money, he knows all about Rose. He knows her history. He knows everything about her.
No, he
right?
doesn't.
He knows what she does because he's got a drone
No, he
following
doesn't.
her.
He doesn't know anything about her. He doesn't know anything.
He is misinformed.
But the thing is about this nemesis thing is he's also very forgiving with everyone. Like he's ready in season 2. He's ready to kill Louise and Joey. But by the end, it's all forgiven.
Well, that's, I think, one of the things that people who listen to the show really glom onto because, like these days, somebody says something on Facebook you don't like, you unfriend them,
Right.
Somebody votes for the person you did not vote for, you cannot ever speak to them again. That's it. You just sever ties and move forward.
Ain't that true?
And you can't unfriend anybody in Broken. Brick could do something terrible. He could meter the toilets like he planned to do that one time, right?
Yeah.
And we
Yeah.
would be angry at him, but we still have to live together. Like we're this tiny town. We all rely on each other to survive. And if you hate him today, you're still going to see him in the grocery store tomorrow.
Right.
And you could do something terrible to somebody, but you have to find a way to work it out and continue to be neighbors and friends. And that's what makes it like a family. Like, you can argue and fight and have terrible disagreements, but you have to find a way to still love each other.
If Brett Brickman wants to get a point across, he builds a huge billboard right outside your house.
Yes.
I wonder how many billboards he's put up over the years.
Well, since he couldn't build a huge hotel, he had to build it.
What I wanted to do was go down and ask Carrie if we could move her cabin on the other side of the billboard.
But
He had enough gold.
But Carrie, you raised an interesting point about Broken, and that is that, like, a town of 71 people, it would almost be impossible for a town to be that small and actually function.
Yeah.
And so, especially because they live on the edge of the wilderness, the Brokenites, they really do have to depend on each other just to survive.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what's really interesting. And that's what, it's like there's no mechanism to escape other people. You're really bound together.
Yeah, and they tied into the tourist boat that comes in.
Yeah.
I mean, they can't. They've got nothing else.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, there's Fair Isle is in the Shetland Islands up in Scotland, off the coast of Scotland. And I don't know what the current population is, but the population of Fair Isle was 71 for a long time.
Interesting.
And you have to take either a long boat ride or an airplane flight to get to Fair Isle. And so I always think, like, what an interesting community that must be, and how everybody must have multiple jobs, and you must hate people, but you still have to see them all the time. And, there's probably the one weirdo that nobody talks to, and everybody's probably had relationships with everybody, and,
Oh, that's funny.
it's really confusing.
Midsummer Murders is based on
That's a BBC sort
a
of thing?
whole county,
Yeah.
and it's full of villages. Right, small villages where people they never leave. And it always reminds me of Broken, because everybody knows everybody, and everyone knows what everybody's doing. Everyone knows who's sleeping with who, and everyone. It's very, very. It's a microcosm. It's just like Broken.
But you kind of have to pretend that you don't.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
It's like, it's like you can hear the other person, what they're doing in the bathroom, but you have to pretend that you don't.
Right. Yeah. Well, I mean, I'm from a very tiny town, Peshtigo, Wisconsin, right? Population 3,178.
I thought you were from Ishpeming.
No, I'm not from
I thought
Ishpeming.
you
I'm
were
from
I
Peshtigo.
thought you're from Idaho.
No, I lived in Pocatello, Idaho for a while.
Oh,
love
I
all these
only live in
names.
places with odd names. But in Peshtigo, Wisconsin, it's about an hour north of Green Bay. At least it was when I was there when I was a kid.
They may have
But
moved it since then.
Depending on the
it's
depth of the
traffic.
snow.
Traffic.
Yeah.
The
Traffic.
speed limit may have increased or decreased. I don't know. But, and like your parents, Mike, live in Soap Lake, right? I don't know what the
Yeah.
population is there, but I think this town of Broken is relatable to so many people who live in small towns or who've ever lived in a small town, because it is like that. Everybody knows everybody's everything.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, let's talk about 71 for a minute here. And this is another instance of where we just improvised something at some point and it
Yes.
stuck. That the population is 71, and if somebody moves to town, someone dies.
That's right.
Yes.
And there are no children.
No children, not
dogs.
for years.
Oh, there's one
Yeah.
dog. Yeah.
Pugsy.
And
if he is a dog.
there's one episode.
Pugsy's not a dog.
Well,
There's one
or is
episode
he
where
not?
Bert says,
Yeah.
somebody says, "What about when Denise moved to town?"
That was Sweet Baby Jesus.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was. Yeah.
Right after Chester Tyrone died.
That's mysterious.
Yeah. So it's always something. And honestly, I don't remember how we came up with that, but it
I
just
don't know.
stuck.
Yeah.
Yep.
And I don't know that we ever answer what that's about, but it does add a layer of that Twin Peaks sort of mystery to the place.
And
too.
it happens so fast that they don't even have time to update the sign.
That's
Right.
Like the person has died
Yes.
before someone can update the sign that says
Yeah.
population 71.
I want to know who okayed all these people moving to the town.
Brett wanted to make sure that the town remained the way it was, but with a whole lot more people.
Well, I
Yes.
think it's, the cruise ship idea, this whole Queen of the Gulls thing, that it's an influx of people who leave.
Yes.
Yeah.
And an
They
influx
come
of
in
people
for the day
who
and they
leave.
leave.
Didn't Kitty come off the boat and Denise? They came
Denise
off
did.
the boat.
Denise showed
Stayed.
up,
Yeah.
but right like an episode later, Chester Tyrone died.
That's right. Yeah.
You know?
Kitty was born in Broken.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
She and
Born
Mark
and
are
raised.
about the only characters
She
who
was
were
the
born
last.
there.
Kitty was
Yeah.
the last person, the last kid in Broken.
I wonder
Yeah.
who died when Brett Brickman came to town.
I don't know. That was a while ago.
Oh, there's an episode.
The season 1 prequel.
The prequel. One of my favorite scenes in this episode, though, is the one where Brett Brickman goes into Mark's bookstore and he's looking for kind of a gift for his cousins, right?
Yeah.
Because up until this point, like, he's just had a big fight with them out in the forest, out in the bear blind, and he's stormed off, and everybody realizes Brett's really mad at his cousins. They don't care because they don't really, they love the cousins, so they don't care what Brett thinks. But Brett Brickman goes into the bookstore, and
Books and other things.
Books and other things, thank you. Mark's not there, and the cats are there. And I think that's such a fun scene for highlighting the cats, because throughout Broken, we've heard Mark say stuff like, Sarsfield, go and look in world history to find
Right.
this book. Meow. The cats are almost, maybe there's only 71 humans in Broken, but to me, the cats are really a bunch of their own characters. Like, they have a lot of stuff going on. And this is such a sweet scene, because it shows this evolution of Brett Brickman from being angry at his cousins to reminiscing a little bit about the good times, which he hasn't thought about. He only dwells on the negative stuff from his childhood.
Right.
But he starts to remember, oh yeah, it was really fun going boating on the Chafalaya River or whatever it was.
Yeah,
right?
the shanty boat.
In the old shanty boat. And he starts to remember some of that good stuff, to the point where he, through his therapy session with the cats, it seems,
Who he made Pinky swear.
who he makes
That's
Pinky swear,
right.
Yeah.
he comes to some sort of a new understanding of his family and his cousins, and he kind of realizes he does miss them and love them, and he's been distant, and he could have done better to keep in touch, and I think that's such a humanizing scene for Brett Brickman. It really it leaps him forward in our understanding of him as a character. I love that scene.
Yeah.
The thing about that part was the book that he got was 101 ways
47 ways to cook a bear.
47 ways to make
Bear gumbo or whatever.
Gumbo.
Right? Yeah,
Who was I talking to? It's funny. I showed it to someone at the party.
Mark. You
was it
show it
Mark?
to Mark when you first get there.
And Brett says, yeah, I figured it was a good book because they could use the same recipes on alligators.
Yeah.
It's like,
Well, and there are so many little things around that too, where it's like he says, "Oh, it's published in Louisiana."
Yeah.
It's like, why would that book be published in Louisiana where they don't have bears?
I don't know. I love that he goes, it has pictures because they're probably illiterate.
that's right. Yeah, I say, oh, this has got lots of pictures. That'll be good.
And it's
47.
great when he's talking to the cats too. He's like, "What's your name, Roy Rogers or something?"
Yeah.
But then at the end, he's like, "Here I am talking to cats," and he goes, "But you have to pinky swear. Don't say a word of this that I talked to you and that I was here." And
That's right, because the cats can communicate with
Yeah.
Mark.
They
Yeah, they
do.
do.
Yeah.
They
Yes, they
really
do.
do. We'll have to get Mark in here to talk about
Yeah.
that.
and
a
that's
lot.
that's another point that shows how you use what you know when you improvise. Like, I think I fed that line to you, Paul, because I actually took a tour of the Atchafalaya Basin when I was in Cajun country in Louisiana.
Yeah.
And I've really been fascinated with shanty boats.
Oh.
Like they used to live on the Mississippi, and it's like, I want to live in a shanty boat. So I just fed both of those things to add some color to the scene.
Yeah, this is something when you're doing improv here with a guide, like an outline. Michael Carey will yell, "Talk about the Shafalala or something,
Yeah.
or the river, or what if you say this and this?" And it's like, okay, they'll go with it.
Well, because honestly, like, that whole scene was like 2 sentences, right?
Yeah.
We start out and we say, okay, you're going into the bookstore. Mark's not there, so complain about Mark a little bit not being there. And then wind up just talking to the cats as you're looking for a book. By the end of it, I want you to have found a book and made up with your cousins in your mind, and you love them again. Go.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then Paul Eenhoorn just starts talking
Yeah.
and making it all up.
And brilliance starts coming out of his mouth.
And then we let it go. We let him like talk for 10 minutes, right? And then at the end we go, oh, I love that. Okay, now add just this little thing in there. Just say this. I remember we were like, say, thanks a lot, Mr. Biblioteca.
Yeah.
Which was hard because I have no idea what it meant.
And you kept forgetting to say
Saying
it too.
wrong. And
Yeah.
it was so funny.
And then we go to the party.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And everyone's there. I didn't realize that everyone,
The whole
just about
town.
everybody's there at my place, being invited by you two.
Yeah. Uh-huh.
Yeah.
Jolly. No, that's very sweet. And I love that, like, there's music and there's food and everybody's just eating and drinking. And
Yeah.
and Lila June, one of my favorite lines she says to Annika Taylor, she goes something like, when they talk about how I used to sew, goes, there must be a sewing room somewhere in this house.
Oh, that's
Who'd be
right.
good at who'd be good at
right.
snooping around
Yeah.
people's houses? Annika, you look like somebody would be good at snooping around people's houses. Oh, I mean that as a compliment.
Yeah, that was great.
Yeah, God, thanks for noticing.
Yeah, that was great.
Somebody knows your secret.
Yeah, they think they do.
I love that.
And I think one of the things about this episode that really humanized Brick is, because Charlie and Lily love each other so much. They've been together since they were 7 years
Right,
old.
yeah.
We
That's so
established
weird.
that.
So weird.
It's like
They're probably brother and sister.
it's like
They're not.
It's like I think Brick is jealous of that relationship
Yeah.
because he wants that relationship and he knows he doesn't have it. So I think that's one reason why they drive him nuts, but at the same time he loves them
Yeah.
because he recognizes the purity of that
I
relationship.
could see that.
Yeah.
And I still think we should do a spin-off of the Charlie and Lily show.
yeah.
I can't do that voice. I can't do that voice for a whole spin-off. It hurts.
You wouldn't have to write very much.
Just mumble a whole lot about stuff with the baby. I got a little baby now. Transcribe that, Mike Fuller.
Yeah.
I'd like to get back to my episode.
We've done yours.
No.
already done your
The reason we're
stories.
going back to it is because I want to dedicate it to my cat that passed away this week.
So good. Yeah.
He was called Smokey on the show, and his real name was Nico. And I want to dedicate that to my.
Yeah.
How old was he?
Yeah, I would too.
He was 12.
Oh, he was beautiful. We have
Yeah.
a picture of you holding Smokey in front of
Yeah.
that big sign up on the Facebook page too, and that is a gorgeous cat.
Yeah.
Very handsome.
Hang on, I'll show you mine. Where's my
Your kitty
cell
cat?
phone? Yeah.
Oh,
You haven't seen my kitty cat?
I don't know if I've seen your kitty cat.
Yeah, we are.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, Fuller, you don't have a cat, right?
No, I had a cat years ago, but he died.
Oh.
Bubba.
If anything we can glean from the family gathering episode is we've determined that Brick is human.
Yes.
That's
Yes.
what we've learned. And we're glad to hear it.
And
Oh,
a very
yeah.
good friend.
Aww.
Yeah, he is.
Unlike,
He is a very good friend.
We love you, Brett
unlike
Brickman.
Rose.
Oh, shut up.
I know. Everyone loves Rose.
Shut up.
No, I'm
Which
saying,
is an interesting point though, because there's a lot of people like Brick and Bird and George and Michael who in a larger town probably wouldn't have been friends because
Right,
they really
yeah.
don't have that much in common.
Yeah,
but,
yeah.
but because they're in this tiny little town and need each
Yeah.
other so much, they've established these really deep friendships.
But
Well,
we live in this huge town and we are friends.
Yeah.
Well, we have things in common, though, don't
Yes.
we?
We do.
Yeah. Uh-huh. Well, and it's finding those things in common, I guess. That's the secret. That's the key. Yeah. That Mark and Brick can be in the same room together and still not
yeah, it's
hate
funny.
each
The
other.
Mark,
It's amazing.
they're in family gathering. Mark and Brick have a conversation. Mark says something like, "I hear you're very good at sewing." Remember that?
Yeah.
He says something like that,
Something like
and then Brett says, "Mark, do you want to be my friend?" And Mark says yes. He said, "Never mention that again."
And he goes, "Didn't you ever sew when you were a little boy, Mark?"
No,
Yeah.
didn't you
Mark
ever
goes,
knit when you were a
Right.
child?
And Mark goes,
No.
"No."
I love that bit. That is so
Such
funny.
a sweet bit. You're right. Well, thank you, Paul Eenhoorn, for being here with us today. We have George Birchworth and Taylor Edwards and Mike Fuller, and I'm Carrie Aguila. And it's just so much fun talking to you guys and getting some insights into the crazy world of Broken. Thanks, you guys.
Thank
you. Thank you.